Hey, lightworkers and lurkers. This is Drayana Hathor, and today I'm going to be talking about all that I've experienced raising a karmic child. Now, a few disclaimers are that this video is not to feel bad for me in any kind of way. This is about a part of my soul journey, and it was a pivotal part of my soul journey. So it's not for sympathy or for you to pity me or anything like that. If anything, my soul journey has made me, well, I can't even say it made me strong as who I am today, but it awakened me to who I am. It led up to my awakening of who I am. And I suggest for everyone else that's on a soul journey to feel the same way. It's not to break you down or weaken you, it's to show you exactly how strong and powerful you really are. Okay, so I had my son on July 15th, 1997. When I was 15 years old, I was getting ready to turn 16 in 3 months. So I had met his father when I was 12 years old. His father is 5 years older than me, so his father was 17. I met his father when I was spending the night at one of my girlfriend's houses, who was a year older than me. So I was 12, she was 13. And she was actually talking to him during that time. But I noticed the whole time that I was there, she had a sleepover for the weekend, mind you. So it was not just me there, it was other girls in my age group there at her house spending the weekend. She had like a weekend sleepover. So I noticed he didn't come in the house, but we were all outside walking around, having a good time together, talking and stuff. And I had noticed that he kept staring at me, like he kept talking to me, like his whole attention was on me, way more than even her. Like he wasn't really paying her any mind, but his full attention was on me. So before he left, he said, "Oh, I got a friend for you." So he hooked me up with one of his friends, linked us up. I think I don't know how I got his friend number, but some kind of way, me and his friend started talking. His friend ended up being my second boyfriend ever, and the boyfriend that broke my virginity. And I'm saying that because me meeting his friend and losing my virginity to his friend was a catalyst to a huge awakening that I had as a child. So I hope that you can see how everything happens for a reason. And you meet everybody on your journey for a reason. I'm just pointing that out. So keep that in mind. But me and his friend were together for probably a little over a year before I let him take my virginity, and then we broke up basically at the same time. He broke up with me after he took my virginity. So his friend was only, so I was dealing with his friend when I was in the 8th, his friend was in the 10th. So he was 2 years older than me when we broke up. Matter of fact, I was in the 8th grade when we were together. And because I met his friend the summer, I was 12 getting ready to turn 13 in October. That was during the summer break before my 7th grade year. So we were together my entire 7th grade year. I lost my virginity in my 8th grade year, and then we broke up. So after me and his friend broke up, he was already done talking to my friend. They were only talking, like they would never had sex or anything like that. But he obviously saw me and wanted to keep me around some kind of way. So that's why he decided, let me hook her up with somebody that I know so I can keep her in my, my view, or I can keep it attached to her some kind of way. So when me and his friend broke up, I didn't talk to nobody or deal with nobody for a while, but I used to see him. Like when me and his friend were dealing with each other, I would go around because they lived in the same neighborhood. So I would go around to his neighborhood and with my sister and my friends, and we just be having a good time. I made friends around there in his neighborhood. So I would still come around there after me and his friend broke up, and he started pushing up on me, and he was very, very, very persistent. I didn't like him. I felt like his personality was too much. He was too extroverted for me. But he wore me down, and I finally started dealing with him when I was 14, maybe right before my 15th birthday. So basically, you might as well say I was 15 years old when I started dealing with him. And I got pregnant shortly thereafter. So once I was pregnant, I hid my pregnancy. Like, I didn't tell my mother, I didn't tell anybody. But we did attempt to get in, well, let me correct that for YouTube. We attempted to terminate the pregnancy. But one day we had went all the way across town in Edmondson Village and caught the bus to a clinic. It was me and him, and I think two other people came with us. And we couldn't find the clinic. It was like we kept hitting roadblocks like the whole time. The whole day we was on the bus. We caught the bus all the way across town and couldn't find the clinic. So I wasn't able to get it done. I didn't feel comfortable telling my mother because my mother was not, oh, she was already mean to me. She wasn't the nicest person, so I didn't feel comfortable talking to her about having a boyfriend, let alone being pregnant. I couldn't even have boys calling the house. So my pregnancy was hidden for around 6 months. I didn't hide or pretend that I was having periods or menstrual cycles or anything like that. She just didn't pay me enough attention to notice that I was 6 months pregnant. I remember doing her hair one day, and my cousin was in the room, and my stomach was rubbing across her back while I was doing her hair, and she paid it no mind. No menstrual cycle products was being asked for her to buy. I didn't fake a menstrual. She didn't pay it any mind. Like, literally, she was blind to the fact that I was pregnant. So she finally figured it out and asked me when I was 6 months pregnant, and she flipped out. So by then it was too late to terminate. So she was already very mean to me, but at that point she was like, hated my guts. Like, she would look at me in pure disgust. Like, she would look at me and just couldn't stand the sight of me. So one day randomly she decided to drive me all the way out Timbuktu to a girls group home and said if I couldn't find it, and to tour the girls group home. And she told me if I couldn't find anywhere else to live, that's where I would be living. Like, she was going to turn me into the group home. So I was like, okay. So the next day I had went to school, and I told one of my girlfriends, like, my mother took me to a group home and said if I couldn't find anywhere to live, that's where I was going to live. She was going to hand me over. So my girlfriend went home and told her mother. I said, I'm assuming, obviously, her mother said she can come stay with us. But the reason why my girlfriend mother said this is me and her we was cool, but her mother didn't know me at all from a can of paint. She never met me before, but she heard about me. And she heard about me because me and her daughter, first of all, we went to middle school together. But I wasn't too fond of her daughter. Her daughter was kind of annoying to me because her daughter started a gang or was in a gang, and they called themselves the Hoes. So it was a group of girls at my middle school, Chickapen Middle School, called themselves the Hoes, and they all had liquor nicknames like the Mad Dog, E&J, and all this other shit. And they used to walk around like, it was annoying to me the way it was annoying. Like, so she was annoying. And then I could tell, like, I'm a hood baby. Like, from the time I was born up until I was 7 years old, I lived on North and Washington in a schoolhouse apartment. And then I moved over west, which most of my family is from west. So I lived around Park Heights Terrace, Spalding Avenue. And then from west, in the 5th grade, I moved over east to McCabe Avenue. And back in the early 90s, McCabe was the wild, wild west. Like, drug dealers on the corner, drive-bys, fighting pit bulls, police chasing people, police all everywhere. It was like, I'm a hood baby, so I'm seeing these girls that you can tell they are not about that life or built like that, but they playing hard in school. So she kind of annoyed me. But fast forward, we ended up going to high school together. Now, by the time high school came, she was out of that little phase. Cause our high school wasn't nothing to play around about. Like, you can't come in there trying to act like you in a gang. It was not going to happen. My high school was wild. So she was out of that. But one day she was in my class. We were in homeroom, and her and another girl were like cracking on each other. And this girl, I'm gonna call her Virgo. Virgo had a really smart mouth because she's a Virgo. So Virgo had a really smart mouth, and she was like cracking on a girl in our homeroom. But the girl was kind of, they was going back and forth. It was a fair little crack session, and people was laughing at both of them going back and forth. But Virgo won the crack session. So I guess the girl that Virgo had beat in the crack session felt some kind of way and went and got her cousin. She left the classroom and went and got her cousin. So by the time we got out of homeroom and we're walking to our first period class, some kind of way, I don't know how her cousin got Virgo in the classroom across the hall. And when I say her cousin beat Virgo really bad. Like, her cousin had on Timberland boots, like Butters. We call them Butters. And Virgo was stumped. So I heard about what happened, and Virgo was in the office. So I went to the office to just check on her because I wasn't really crazy about her, but I felt bad for her. Like, what happened? So I go in the office, and Virgo had a Timberland print on the side of her face from that girl stomping her face. Like the bottom of the foot, the imprint at the bottom of the boot, the ridges was on Virgo's face. And Virgo was in the office crying, and I told Virgo, I was like, any other time you fight from now on, I'm helping you. And I meant it. So after that, Virgo got in a fight, and I helped her. I kept my word. I even helped her fight a dude. I caught a dude beating her up one day in the hallway. And it wasn't even a hallway, it was a stairwell. So he caught her on the stairwell by themselves. And she's up against like by a window, and he's going like swinging, and I'm swinging in the back of his damn head. Like, I was lighting his head up. But her boyfriend came to school the next day and got him too. So, but her mother heard about me because of that, because of me helping her daughter in school, helping her daughter fight. So her mother obviously, was like, yeah, she can come stay with us, no questions asked. So that's where I ended up going. So I went to go stay with him. I told my mother, and she was like, okay. She gave me, my father used to pay child support. So he used to pay, I can't really remember. I know it was like $25. I think it was $25 every 2 weeks. So she gave me the money for child support. I want to say it was on a card, or I used to get checks, but it most likely was on a card, because I used to use the card to go and buy food. I had to feed myself when I stayed with Virgo and her mother. So I would have like a $50 a month budget for food to make sure that I ate, because I had to feed myself. And I stayed with them until I gave birth. Virgo's mother did throw me a baby shower where she cooked and everything, and she invited people. My mother came to the baby shower. And so when I went into labor, I called my mother to tell her, I went into labor. So I ended up going to the hospital. She ended up taking me, actually. Her and my aunt, her sister, came and got me and a bunch of girls. Like, I had a bunch of friends with me, at least 5 or 6 friends. It was a lot of us. We went to the hospital for me to give birth to my son. I ended up having a 9-pound, 7.6 pounder. Ouncer. 9 pounds, 7.6 ounce baby. Damn near 10 pounds. I had a big boy. So I had him. And in the hospital, my mother was like, she wanted me to come home with her. Now, you went through all that to put me out, and she wanted me to come home. So me being, okay, that's my mother, trusting her, I'm like, okay, I'll go home with you. So I ended up going from the hospital back home with her. Now, she had a husband as well. She was with my stepfather. She was with him probably since I was, at that time. Matter of fact, my mother was with my stepfather from the age of maybe 7. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old. They had been married. So he felt some kind of way about me being pregnant as well. And he was a big reason for her putting me out as well. They both wanted me out. He had an obsession with me too. And this might be a trigger warning, but I feel like me getting pregnant wasn't so much about the fact that he was upset that I was pregnant, the way you would think an adult would be upset about a child being pregnant. Like he was he had like a little sick little obsession with me. And I'll give you a couple of examples of encounters that I had with him prior to me getting pregnant. So one time I remember being in my room getting dressed. I'm naked. And he's standing in the doorway looking at me with a grin on his face. And I'm like, get out. And he said, I'll look at whoever I want to look at in my house. So I yelled to my mother, like, Ma, he's looking at me. And then he walked away. And, you know, her husband was a Nigerian man as well. I like to add that. Not saying all Nigerian men are any kind of way, but I like to add that as well. It'll make sense when I talk about what happened once I went back to her house. So another instance was, I remember being a little kid. I was younger than what I was when he was watching me naked. And I called him out. But I remember feeling nauseous and feeling sick. And he was never nice to me either. Like, he was just as abusive as she was. Like, he used to discipline us by holding our hands out. I had a sister that wasn't his as well. And they treated us like trash. So he would discipline us by us holding our hands out, and he would take a wooden spoon and pop our hands with the spoon, like pop our knuckles. No, matter of fact, he used to have us hold our knuckles, and he used to pop our knuckles for wooden spoon. And then he used to make us put our head down and crack our heads with his knuckles. He used to call us monkeys, all kind of stuff. He was very abusive. But I remember being little, younger than what I was when he was looking at me naked. And I was feeling nauseous, and he had me laying like on his lap, like my head was on his lap, and he was rubbing my stomach. He was not affectionate. Him rubbing my stomach was purely sexual. And I was feeling sick, and I ended up dozing off. You know why I was feeling sick and why I dozed off. I was fed something to knock me out. Now, what happened after that, I don't know. But even he had a weird obsession. He was attracted to me. Okay. So me being pregnant, not only her not liking me and being mean, and now he's upset about me being pregnant. So they both wanted to punish me or torture me or whatever sick, twisted mindsets they had. That was a time where I needed love and support, I was treated like trash. But back to the story. She asked me to come back. So I'm like, okay, I'll go back with my mother. So I ended up going back with my newborn baby. I might have been there maybe a week. If a week. I didn't even get a chance to get comfortable. And she said, oh, your stepfather doesn't want you here anymore. I'm going to take you somewhere. So she packed me and my newborn baby up. His crib and all. His crib was mounted to the top of her van. And drove us to an apartment complex. We get out the car. And she takes me in an African man's house, or his apartment, and was trying to drop me off with this man I never met in my life. She was trying to human traffic her daughter and her newborn grandson. So I'm looking, I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not staying here. You crazy? I was like, can I use your phone? Asked him, can I use his phone? He was like, yes. So I went in his bedroom, his phone was in his bedroom. And I called Virgo's mother, and I'm like, told her what was going on, and she was like, come right now, like come on. So I ended up going back to go live with them again. Okay, so I stayed with them for a little while. It wasn't that long, but ultimately I ended up bouncing around. So I lived with friends, family members, my mother. I would go back to her house, but I didn't really go back to her house until, because her and my stepfather ended up breaking up. So once they ended up breaking up, I was able to, go to her house to live sometimes. And I was just bouncing around, very unstable with a child. And I was homeless. So I was homeless from the ages of 15 all the way up until 21. So I experienced 6 years of homelessness. You know, anytime I would go back to my mother's house, like she would put me out for any reason, but I needed somewhere to stay, so I would go when I needed to, if she would allow me. Until she would look at me one day and be like, "Oh, you gotta go, get out." And I wasn't the only child she did that to. Like I said, I had a sister who was 3 years younger than me, about 2.5 years younger than me, and that wasn't with her husband, and she put my sister out, and my sister didn't have any kids, so it wasn't a pregnant teenager issue. She didn't like her daughters, and I think she didn't like her daughters because of who their fathers was. Like, she wasn't with the fathers. So, and that's a issue that I see with a lot of women that have kids because of their attachment to men. Once the men are gone, they discard the children or treat the children like burdens. So yeah, my sister was homeless as well from the age of, I think my sister might have been homeless from 14, actually. She was a little younger than me when my mother put her out. And she hopped around, did things to survive, because we were basically like, we were fed to the wolves, put out in the streets. Like, I'll go into my lifestyle and being in the streets, because I was able to find places to stay and stuff like that, but I still had to survive. Like, I had no guidance, no parents. I had nothing but myself, and both of us had, had to do what we had to do to survive. So my son, back to him. So my son was always like different, and I noticed how different he was really once he was able to move around, like walk and stuff. Like, he one day he walked out of the house, opened the door, unlocked the door, walked across the street. Like, he was that type of kid. 2 years old, maybe not even two, with a onesie on, out the door by himself. And being in daycares, like, I had him in daycare. He got put out of 2 different daycares in a row. So I had him in one daycare. The lady like, "Oh, he can't be here no more. I can't do it." I found another daycare for him. He lasted one day in that lady daycare before she said, "Don't bring him back." He always had really bad behavior issues. Like, he was one of a kind. I still haven't met another child like my son. Ever. Like, I haven't. So, and once he was school age, he got into a lot of trouble in school. Um, One incident happened where he stabbed a child's hand with a pencil, and they decided to evaluate him. So he did a psychological evaluation with Baltimore City Schools, and he was diagnosed as ADHD, and he was diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder. So yeah, they put him in like a special education, and he struggled. And not only was he a handful at school, but he was also a handful at home. So it was hard for me to have people watch him. It was hard for me to be able to work and have childcare because of his behavior. So those were all additional challenges I had on top of not having family, not having support, not having his father wasn't hands on with him. So I had, it was really hard to find stability while having a child with his issues and not having support at home. We did end up staying with my son's father's family for a little while. I was living with them when I graduated high school, so I stayed with them for a while. We were able to do that, but outside of being with them, it was very hard to live with people and have him with me. When I finally got stability, I had a few apartments during the 6 years of homelessness, but it was hard for me to hold on to them, not being able to work because of having him. And I'm not a type of person that want to work for other people anyway. It was a lot. So I finally got stability when I was able to get subsidized housing. It went by my income. So I didn't have really any income, so I didn't have to pay any rent. Once we moved into that apartment, We had more issues, still had issues with him in school, but we had issues with the kids in the neighborhood because my son was, like I said, was very out there. He was very wild. So he would do crazy stuff. I would let him go outside because he was ADHD, but I did not keep him high up on Ritalin or any other medications. We tried them. I didn't like the effects they had on him. First, he lost a lot of weight. Like, he was really skinny. I didn't like that. And then I would notice ticks. Like, he would be like a zombie and tick. Like his mouth be doing crazy stuff. I'm like, I don't like this. So I took him off of medication. I was like, you know what? I'll just deal with it. I'd rather deal with it and him adjust to life than him being drugged up through life. Like, I'll just deal with the consequences of it because I didn't like my child being a zombie. So we finally moved in our subsidized apartment. And when we moved in that apartment, I was actually pregnant with my second child. He was 6 years old at that time. So, yeah, he was 6 when I had her because they're 6 years apart. So, he had issues adjusting to me having her. He was horrible to that girl. Like, he was very, very, very hateful and jealous. I had to keep a close eye on him with my daughter. And this is all throughout, even up until now. Like, he has a hate for her for some reason. It's worse than sibling rivalry. And then when he was outside in the apartment complex, he would do wild stuff. I would have people knocking on my door about him, other parents knocking on my door saying he did this to their child and did that to their child. They was coming with steam on their chest. When I opened the door, they would calm down. But I was willing to do whatever for my child. Like, you want to come over here and, whatever. I rode for my child, even though he was a demon seed. That was my demon seed, okay? But, yeah, he people, I'm telling you, any class that he was in school, them teachers remember him. The principals remember him. Like, the people in my old neighborhood, we lived in Sinclair Gate Apartments, they know him. Like, he is not the type of person that you can forget, okay? And he definitely did a lot around there. One time, somebody knocked on my door saying he defecated by a tree. That's an example of the crazy stuff that he would do. He was unhinged. Like, what child, go outside in your house right there, you go outside to go defecate by a tree? Like, it wasn't right. But I dealt with it. Like, I didn't really have any help from his father because when I decided to leave his father alone, like, me and his father ended up breaking up when I was probably about 19. So I was with his father for a few years, but when I decided I had outgrew him, I didn't want to be with him no more. He blatantly told me that since I didn't want to be with him no more, that he wouldn't be a part of my son's life. Straight up. And he meant it. He still paid child support for a while, but once he found out that I had another kid, either I was pregnant with my daughter or he found out I had a baby, and he stopped paying child support. That man owed me so much child support, it's ridiculous. Like, he totally tapped out of being a father once I decided that I didn't want to be with him, and then completely tapped out once I had another child by somebody else, because my son was both of our only child. Like, that, he was our first children. So yeah, I was on my own with my son, and I just made it work. So I eventually ended up getting with my ex-husband when my son was 9 years old. My daughter was 3. And my ex-husband came in the picture being a father figure. Like, his family calling my kids his. Like, he came and I met him September. On Christmas, he bought all my kids Christmas stuff. Like, he came in like Big Daddy, like he the pappy. So I was like, okay. And he was able to tolerate my son, because my son, I've dated guys and stuff like that after I left his father alone and stuff. But I never lived with, it wasn't nothing to, because, I mean, to be honest, like when you have kids, y'all are a package. And my son was a lot to deal with. So I can't really blame other people for not being able to fit into our dynamic because it was a package deal. But my ex-husband came in and he was like, he's a double Leo. So he was just as stubborn. He was just as like, is my way or the highway. Like he came in, he was not intimidated by my son. Because my son he was kind of intimidating. Like he was very like, he's the type that would be jealous if I had a boyfriend, or jealous if I had a guy in my company. Like one time I was in a car with a guy and my son is in the back. Well, actually it was a truck. It was a Toyota Sequoia to be exact. And we're driving. The guy's driving on the highway. My son in the back seat. My son threw a water bottle while we're on the highway to the front of the car. Could have got us in an accident. Like that's the type of shit he would do, if just to wreak havoc. But my ex-husband wasn't with none of that. Like he wasn't budging. He would not budge. Like he came in and was like, so I eventually got help with raising my son. I allowed my ex-husband to discipline my son. Now I never allowed him to take things too far, but he needed that male energy in his life. He needed a male role model. He needed discipline and he needed structure. It always had boundaries to it. Like it wasn't crazy. My ex-husband didn't take shit too far, but my son needed structure. He needed boundaries. But even having my ex-husband there, he still was him. It didn't change him, but it kind of gave him more structure, to know that there would be consequences if he did X, Y, and Z. Especially when it came to the way he treated his sister. My ex-husband would be on him like white on rice if he did anything to my daughter. Now, mind you, my ex-husband was no angel. He had his issues, and I had to deal with certain things when it came to him. But it all was worth it with him being able to help me raise my son in particular. So I'll get into me and his dynamic and our family dynamic more when I might do a video on being married to a karmic man for 14 and a half years, and then I'll get into that whole thing. So my son made it to high school. He ended up failing a couple of times in high school, so he was behind 2 years. So in his 10th grade year, so he was in the 10th, but was supposed to be in the 12th. He asked me to take him out of a regular high school called Digital Harbor, and asked me to put him in Harbor City, which was an alternative high school, so that he could actually graduate. So I did it. I took him out of Digital Harbor and put him in Harbor City. And he was able to graduate. He graduated when he was about 20 years old. He was getting ready to turn 20. So he graduated in June. He was turning 20 in July. So he ended up graduating from high school and went into the work field, where he could not keep a job. Like he would cuss out any authority figure. He would have an issue with, cuss him out, threaten him, all that kind. He's oppositional defiance disorder. That's what he was diagnosed with, and it shows in his life. Like trying to control him or be an authority figure to him, he will rebel and he will cuss you out. He'll hate you, literally. Like he's very hateful to authority figures. So couldn't keep a job as an adult either. Now during his late teenage years into young adult years, I knew that he held animosity towards me. For what? I don't know. I did my best. I treated him no differently than I treated my other kids. I loved him to death. I protected him. He would have to tell his own story to give you his side. But as far as I'm concerned, like my intentions have always been pure love when it came to my son. But he always harbored hate for me. Like I remember having a boyfriend at one time when he was young. So he was, before my ex-husband. And my boyfriend heard him singing a song. It was an Eminem song, "Sorry Mama." The song goes, "Sorry Mama, never meant to hurt you, never meant to make you cry, but tonight I'm cleaning out my closet." He's a little kid, like yeah, authority figures, hatred for people in authority, hatred for, and why he hated me, I don't know. And I'm gonna tell you right now, like, that's a karmic thing. As much as you might love them and you might have the best intentions for karmics, like the saying goes, like your light irritates their demons. It's nothing that you can do to satisfy them. It's nothing that you can do to make them reciprocate how you feel and your intentions for them. It's like oil and water. It doesn't mix. You might feel loving and love them, but they cannot reciprocate that. And that's fine, you know? It is what it is. But as he got older, even in high school, like I'm having a conversation with him and he lashes out. I'm like, where'd that come from? Like he really had like deep-seated hatred towards me for whatever reason, child. I don't know. Another time he was talking to my daughter about me and was talking about me like a dog. I know he talked to his girlfriend about me like a dog. But it finally hit its limit. This past, not this Thanksgiving, wait a minute. Yeah, this past Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving of 2023. He came to my house. Well, we were actually living together. He came, but he used to stay with his girlfriend a lot. So he came for Thanksgiving to come and get something to eat. And he decided that he wanted to start some shit on Thanksgiving. And he basically brought up my history. Because as I said before, when I was pregnant with him, I stayed with family members and I stayed with friends. But notably, I'm going to stick with family members. They treated me like shit, including my mother. And he was saying that I'm the issue. They treated me like shit. Like, how could it be everybody else and not me? Because I was treated like shit when I was homeless. And I was treated like shit while I was homeless, bringing him into this world. So I'm like, okay, they let me know. It was like an awakening moment for me to let me know that he is one of them. And I didn't really want to see it because he's my child. But that was an awakening for me. I was like, okay, like I was done. I cut him off. Like I disowned him. He was 26 years old at that time. And I disowned my son. I released him, let him go at 26 years old. And that's how it's going to be. You know, when you have karmic people in your life and they are revealed to you, especially when you're on a soul journey and you've had your great awakening, you have no other choice but to release them. I'm sorry, unless you want to sacrifice your journey and your rewards for your hard work that you put in for a karmic that hates you. I'm not willing to do it for anybody. Like I'm not sacrificing all the hard work I put in, all the lessons that I learned and everything. And once I'm shown who you are and how you really feel about me and what side of this shit that you're on, I gotta let you go. And that's what I did. Not saying it was easy. It hurt. Like when me and him was arguing, it actually came down to almost fist fighting. I threatened to unalive him actually. Like it got really heated. And I cried, and he saw me crying and stuff. I let it go. I processed it right then and there and let it go. It wasn't easy for me, but it's something that you have to do. This journey is not for the weak. You have to make plenty of sacrifices. And I'm telling you, once you've been awakened to people, because there will be instances and stuff that come and it seems chaotic. It's like a tower moment and it's crazy and you might be hurt, but you got to make those hard decisions to just release the people. Release the people or situations that are karmic, man. You don't have no other choice unless you want to sacrifice what you're here for people that are not supposed to go with you along the way. you know. Well, that wasn't easy to tap into. I actually had me a little drinky drink because I decided not to write anything down, just to tap into it and just go in it. But tapping into it, you still kind of feel the same feelings, even though you heal from it and let it go. You're still tapping into how you felt during the time. So this kind of takes the edge off. And I still didn't say every little detail. I might save that if I write a book or something like that. I'll say, but let me know what y'all think. Um, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. I hope you enjoyed it and was able to get, some kind of lesson out of it. Because we all have karmics in our lives. If we don't have them in our lives now, we've had them in the past, or we might come across them in the future. Karmic children, karmics are not made as adults. They come in this world as karmic. So, yeah, plenty of people have karmic children. They just can't really put their finger on. Like, I didn't know. I didn't know until after my Great Awakening that my son was a karmic. So, and I really didn't know till well after my Great Awakening that he was a karmic. So, yeah, we're all here to learn. And as we learn, we ascend. Ascending and learning is synonymous, honey, and experiences, But why not learn from other people's experiences? That's what the wise do, learn from others' experiences. But like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed.